Samsung Galaxy S4 Mini Review. Hardware. Since the Galaxy S4 Mini bears the same name as the flagship device released earlier this year, it should simply be a miniaturized version, right? Not so fast. While the Mini, which comes in both black and white color options, possesses many of the same traits as its elder sibling, they're mostly related to external design and basic firmware. On the outside, the family resemblance is obvious. The front features a camera on the top right corner, with the hardware home button on the bottom flanked by two capacitive keys, menu and back, while the back houses the 8-megapixel camera and LED flash in the same vertical arrangement as on the GS4. The sides are essentially the same, with the micro USB port on the bottom, volume rocker on the left, power button on the right and headphone jack/IR blaster up top. It also takes advantage of the same build techniques as the GS4, which means you're once again getting a polycarbonate construction and checkerboard pattern. In terms of hardware, that's ultimately where the commonalities cease. As you'd expect, the 4.3-inch Mini is much easier to handle than anything with a 5-inch screen or larger. After reviewing so many big smartphones, we find it a little weird to switch back to a device that our fingers can actually wrap around. At 124.6 x 61.3 x 8.9 mm, it's shorter, narrower and thicker than the GS4, but all of these measurements lead to more rounded edges and a stronger grip as a result. In humid climates, this actually comes in quite handy, as the slippery contours of the phone would make it much easier to pop right out of our sweaty hands, an issue we sometimes encountered with the GS4. It's also incredibly light, weighing in at just 3.77 ounces, 107 grams. Underneath the 1,900 mAh battery, you'll find a microSIM slot and a microSD reader, the latter on top of the former, which is a change from the GS4's layout. The two slots were set apart from each other and could be accessed without yanking out the battery. Under the hood is a dual-core 1.7 GHz Snapdragon 400, a clear downgrade from any of the original GS4's chipset options. NFC, Bluetooth, IR, and Wi-Fi are all included as well, though 802.11 AC isn't an option here. The Mini also features a scant 8 GB of internal storage, which doesn't leave much room for your own personal enjoyment, especially after you take into account both the OS and Samsung's TouchWiz UI. The model we reviewed was the i9195, which is the LTE version. It also comes in dual SIM and 3G only variants. It sports bands 3, 7, and 20, 800/1800/2600, which are primarily used in Europe and other countries around the world. You'll also get quad-band HSPA+, 850/900/1900/2100, with speeds up to 42 Mbps GSM/Edge, 850/900/1800/1900, is also part of the deal, ensuring that North American users/travelers will get somewhat decent data speeds. One of our biggest hardware gripes is the lackluster 4.3-inch Super AMOLED display with QHD, 960x540, resolution, which translates to a pixel density of 256 pixels per inch. Needless to say, this is a considerable drop in quality from the GS4, whose screen resolution is a full 1080p. The majority of the phone's other specs are at least somewhat enticing for most average users, so we're not sure why Samsung chose to cut corners in this department. Just for comparison, the HTC One Mini features a 720p LCD3 display. Unless the company just had a bunch of stockpiled QHD panels it was trying to get rid of, that would sort of make sense, given that the Galaxy S4 Zoom also uses the same display. Fortunately, there's a silver lining here. Despite the lack of sharpness and resolution, the display at least offers above-average viewing angles and is moderately easy to read at full brightness in direct sunlight, though we can't say the same when you turn the brightness setting down. Software. In many ways, Samsung smartphones running TouchWiz are just like Windows phones in the sense that the user experience is incredibly consistent from one device to another. The Mini, which runs Android 4.2.2 with Xiaomi's proprietary user interface on top, felt very familiar to us after having reviewed the GS4 and the Galaxy Mega. While some original GS4 features have been included in the Mini, however, even more were left out. That said, we don't take much issue there, since we found most of those features to only be ideal for a few niche users and are more processor intensive than they're worth, but we can't argue that there are some people who would find them useful. So, what features didn't make the cut? Air View, Air Gestures, most smart features, such as Smart Scroll, Smart Pause, and Smart Rotation, and several camera modes. It does, however, offer live thumbnails in the video app, as well as pop-up movies so you can watch something while doing actual work getting other tasks taken care of. Otherwise, the Mini offers nothing we haven't seen before. This is the same old TouchWiz, which makes sense, since Samsung usually waits for the flagship devices to unveil brand new features. You'll notice that Group Play, S-Translator, S-Health, S-Travel, S-Voice, Smart Stay, S-Memo, Watch On, Samsung Link and the Samsung Hub are all there. Long pressing the menu key takes you into Google Now, while the same action on the home button will pull up recent apps. However, doing this on the back button results in nothing at all. This is normally reserved on TouchWiz for multi-window, but Samsung probably decided that the experience wouldn't be worthwhile on a smaller device.